A 7-year-old child was being dragged out of Valentim Hospital, screaming for help, when a billionaire stepped out of his limousine and shouted one word that echoed through the entire parking lot: "Stop!" What he did in the next 60 seconds didn't just shock everyone who witnessed it. It deposited $20 million instantly and changed hospital policy forever. And what this billionaire discovered about that child, nobody could have predicted it. The rain poured down on Valentim Hospital's main entrance as security guard Miguel Rodriguez gripped the arm of a screaming 7-year-old girl, dragging her toward the parking lot while her grandmother limped behind them, begging him to stop. It was 6:30 on a cold November evening, the kind of night when the emergency room overflowed with patients, when doctors worked double shifts, and when the harsh reality of American healthcare showed its cruelest face. But what was about to happen in that rain-soaked parking lot would expose something even darker about the system, and one man's reaction would shake Valentim Hospital to its very foundation. Little Emma Martinez's screams pierced through the sound of rainfall. "Please, I need my medicine. Please don't make me leave." The 7-year-old child struggled against Miguel's grip, her small body weak from illness, but her spirit still fighting. Her grandmother, Rosa Martinez, a 72-year-old woman who'd raised Emma since birth after her daughter died in childbirth, clutched her chest as she tried to keep up, her own heart condition making every step painful. "I'm sorry, Mom. I have my orders," Miguel said, his voice heavy with regret. He hated this part of his job more than anything, but he had a family to feed, and following orders meant keeping his paycheck. "Administration says if you can't pay, you have to leave." "I don't make the rules." Emma had been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes 6 months ago. The 7-year-old child needed insulin to survive, needed regular monitoring, needed supplies that cost more per month than Rosa's entire Social Security check. They'd been managing barely, with samples from the clinic and help from a charity program. But this week, Emma had developed a dangerous infection. Her blood sugar had spiked to critical levels, and Rosa had rushed her to Valentim Hospital's emergency room in a panic. The ER doctor had stabilized Emma, started her on IV antibiotics and insulin, and admitted her for observation. But then the billing department got involved. Rosa Martinez had Medicare, but Emma wasn't covered under it. Rosa had been trying to get Emma on the state children's health program, but the paperwork was stuck in bureaucratic limbo. The hospital wanted $12,000 as a deposit for Emma's continued care. Rosa had $300 in her savings account. That's when hospital administrator Victoria Chen made the call. A cold, calculated decision based on spreadsheets and profit margins. If the patient couldn't pay and wasn't in immediate life-threatening danger, they had to be discharged. No exceptions. It didn't matter that Emma was a 7-year-old child with a chronic condition. It didn't matter that sending her home without proper treatment could kill her within days. All that mattered was that Rosa Martinez couldn't deposit $12,000, so Emma Martinez had to go. "My baby needs her insulin," Rosa cried out, rain soaking through her worn coat. "Please, in the name of God, she's just a 7-year-old child. She didn't ask to be sick. Please." Miguel stopped at the edge of the covered entrance, where the rain created a curtain between the warm, dry hospital and the cold, wet parking lot. He looked down at Emma, who was crying now, her small face pale and frightened. This 7-year-old child was sick, vulnerable, and being thrown out into the rain because of money. "I'm sorry," Miguel whispered again, and he meant it. But sorry didn't change anything. Sorry didn't pay medical bills or fix broken systems. He was about to step into the rain when a black limousine pulled up to the emergency entrance. The kind of car that screamed wealth and power, with tinted windows and a shine so perfect that even the rain couldn't dull it. The vehicle stopped directly in front of them, blocking their path. The back door opened, and out stepped a man who looked like he'd walked out of a Fortune 500 magazine. James Patterson was 68 years old, silver-haired, impeccably dressed in a suit that cost more than most people's monthly rent. and he carried himself with the confidence of someone who'd spent decades making billion-dollar decisions. He was one of the wealthiest men in America, a tech entrepreneur who'd revolutionized cloud computing in the 90s and had been making strategic investments ever since. James had come to Valentim Hospital that evening for a charity gala in the event center, a fundraiser where rich people ate expensive food and wrote tax-deductible checks while feeling good about themselves. His assistant had just texted him the details when he'd arrived, and he was prepared to smile, shake hands, give a speech, and donate a respectable amount before heading home. But then he saw something that stopped him cold. A security guard dragging a crying 7-year-old child out of the hospital while an elderly woman begged for mercy. James Patterson had seen a lot in his 68 years. He'd built companies and crushed competitors. He'd made fortunes and lost millions. He'd negotiated with world leaders and dined with celebrities, but he'd never gotten used to seeing children suffer. Maybe it was because he'd lost his own daughter to leukemia 20 years ago when she was just 8 years old. Maybe it was because, even with all his billions, he hadn't been able to save her. Whatever the reason, seeing that 7-year-old child being dragged into the rain triggered something primal in him. "Stop!" James's voice cut through the sound of rain like a thunderclap, not a request, a command. Miguel froze instantly. Rosa looked up with desperate hope. Emma stopped crying for a moment, looking at this stranger who'd appeared like an angel in an expensive suit. James stepped forward, rain immediately soaking his perfectly styled hair, but he didn't seem to notice or care. His eyes were locked on Emma, on this 7-year-old child who reminded him so painfully of his own daughter in her final days. "What's happening here?" James demanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone used to being obeyed. Miguel shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, I'm just following orders from administration. This patient can't pay for treatment, so she's being discharged." Discharged. James looked at Emma, really looked at her, the pallor of her skin, the medical bracelet still on her wrist, the IV port taped to her small arm. This wasn't a discharged patient. This was a sick 7-year-old child being thrown out. "Please, sir." Rosa stepped forward, clutching James's arm with desperate strength. "My granddaughter has diabetes. She needs insulin. She needs medicine. They want $12,000, but I don't have it. I spent everything I had on her grandmother's funeral last year. Please, I'll do anything. I'll clean floors. I'll work. Just please don't let them take her out in this rain." James felt his heart crack. This elderly woman, clearly sick herself, begging a stranger to save her 7-year-old grandchild. Where had the world gone so wrong that this was acceptable, that a hospital could drag a diabetic child into the rain because her grandmother didn't have $12,000? "Security guard, let go of that child immediately," James said, his voice dropping to a dangerous calm that was somehow more intimidating than shouting. Miguel released Emma's arm instantly. The 7-year-old child ran to her grandmother, who wrapped her in a protective embrace. James turned back toward the hospital entrance, where a small crowd had gathered to watch the scene unfold. Nurses, doctors, administrative staff, all standing under the covered entrance, watching but not intervening. "Someone get me whoever's in charge of this hospital right now," James commanded. "I want them here in 60 seconds, or I'm calling every news station in the city and telling them that Valentim Hospital throws diabetic 7-year-old children out in the rain." A young nurse pulled out her phone immediately, making a call with shaking hands. Within 30 seconds, Victoria Chen appeared, the hospital administrator who'd made the decision to discharge Emma. She was a thin woman in her 40s, wearing designer glasses and an expression of barely concealed annoyance. "Sir, I understand you're upset, but we have policies," Victoria began. "Policies?" James interrupted, his voice rising now. "Your policy is to drag a 7-year-old child with diabetes out of a hospital in the rain because her grandmother can't immediately deposit $12,000? Victoria's expression remained cold. "Mr. Patterson, James Patterson, Victoria's face went slightly pale. Everyone in the business world knew that name, but she recovered quickly, defaulting to bureaucratic justification. Mr. Patterson, I'm sure you understand as a businessman that hospitals have operational costs. We cannot provide free care to every patient who cannot pay. We have protocols for indigent patients, but they require paperwork and approval processes. This patient's guardian refused to complete the necessary forms. Rosa spoke up, her voice trembling. The forms were 30 pages long. In English, I barely read. I asked for help, but nobody would help me. I tried, I swear I tried. James looked at Victoria Chen with an expression of pure disgust. So, you're throwing a 7-year-old child out of a hospital because her elderly grandmother, who clearly speaks English as a second language, couldn't navigate your deliberately complicated bureaucracy designed to discourage people from seeking help. Our forms are standard, Victoria started. I don't care about your forms, James said, cutting her off. Here's what's going to happen. This child is going back inside immediately. She's going to get every bit of medical care she needs. The best pediatric endocrinologist on staff is going to see her. She's getting a private room, and you're going to treat her like she's the most important patient in this entire hospital. Victoria's jaw tightened. Mr. Patterson, with all due respect, who's going to pay for all that? The hospital cannot absorb costs for every... I am, James said flatly. He pulled out his phone, opened his banking app, and made a call to his personal wealth manager, putting it on speaker so everyone could hear. Daniel, it's James. I need you to wire $20 million to Valentim Hospital immediately. I'll send you the account details in the next 5 minutes. The crowd that had gathered gasped. Victoria Chen's mouth fell open. Rosa Martinez grabbed Emma tighter, afraid to believe what she was hearing. 20 million, sir? Daniel's voice came through the phone, professional but surprised. Just to confirm, you want to deposit $20 million right now? Immediately, James confirmed. And Daniel, make sure it's tagged as a restricted endowment for the Patterson Emergency Medical Fund for patients who cannot afford care. Every penny of it is to be used for people exactly like this 7-year-old child and her grandmother. People who need help and can't navigate your deliberately broken system. Processing now, Mr. Patterson, Daniel responded. Transaction will complete within 10 minutes. James hung up and looked at Victoria Chen, whose face had gone from annoyed to shocked to calculating in the span of 30 seconds. $20 million was more than the hospital's annual fundraising goal. So let me be very clear, James continued, his voice cold as ice. Not only is Emma going to receive care, but from this moment forward, any patient who comes to Valentim Hospital and cannot afford treatment will be covered by this fund. No complicated forms, no bureaucratic runarounds, no 7-year-old children being dragged into the rain. Is that understood? Victoria nodded slowly, her administrator brain already spinning on how to manage this unexpected windfall. Yes, Mr. Patterson, absolutely. We'll implement the program immediately. You'll do more than that, James said. You're going to create a patient advocacy office, staffed by people who speak multiple languages, whose only job is to help patients like Mrs. Martinez navigate care and coverage. You're going to train every member of your staff that patient care comes before billing, and you're going to fire whoever made the decision to throw this sick child out of the hospital. Victoria's eyes widened. Mr. Patterson, I made that decision. It's protocol. Then change the protocol or find another job, James said bluntly. I'm going to be on the phone tomorrow with every member of this hospital's board of directors, and we're going to have a very serious conversation about priorities. Now, get this child back inside and get her the medical attention she needs. Move. Victoria practically ran back into the hospital, shouting orders at nurses and staff. Within seconds, a wheelchair appeared, and a kind-faced nurse named Patricia gently helped Emma sit down. Sweetheart, let's get you back to a warm room and get you feeling better, okay? Patricia said softly to the 7-year-old child. Emma looked up at James with wide, tear-filled eyes. Are you an angel? James felt his composure crack. He knelt down in the rain, getting his expensive suit soaked, and looked this 7-year-old child in the eyes. "No, sweetie. I'm just someone who thinks you deserve to be healthy and safe, just like every child does." "Thank you," Emma whispered. "I was so scared." "You don't have to be scared anymore," James promised. "You're going to get better, and you're never going to be turned away from this hospital again." As Patricia wheeled Emma back inside, Rosa Martinez grabbed James's hands, sobbing so hard she could barely speak. "God bless you, sir. God bless you. You saved her life." "How can I ever thank you?" James helped the elderly woman to her feet gently. "Mrs. Martinez, you don't need to thank me. You just need to take care of that beautiful granddaughter, and if you ever have trouble getting her the care she needs, you call me directly." He handed her a business card with his personal cell phone number written on the back. "Day or night you call." "Understood." Rosa clutched the card like it was a precious treasure, nodding through her tears. James walked back into Valentim Hospital, no longer interested in the charity gala happening in the event center. He had more important things to do. He spent the next 3 hours sitting with Emma and Rosa, while doctors examined the 7-year-old child, adjusted her insulin, treated her infection, and set up a comprehensive care plan. Dr. Susan Park, the head of pediatric endocrinology, came personally to examine Emma. She was a talented physician who'd watched too many diabetic children slip through the cracks of the healthcare system because their families couldn't afford insulin or monitoring supplies. "Mr. Patterson," Dr. Park said quietly, while Emma slept and Rosa dozed in a chair beside her. "What you did tonight. I've been working in pediatric diabetes care for 20 years, and I cannot tell you how many children I've seen suffer or die because they couldn't afford treatment. This fund you're creating could save hundreds of lives." "Then let's make sure it does," James replied. "I want you to help me design this program, Doctor. You know what these families need. You know where the system fails them. Help me fix it." Dr. Park's eyes welled with tears. "I would be honored." Over the next week, James Patterson became a fixture at Valentim Hospital. He met with the board of directors and made it very clear that his $20 million deposit was contingent on fundamental changes to how the hospital treated low-income patients. The board, faced with losing the largest single donation in hospital history, agreed to everything he demanded. The Patterson Emergency Medical Fund was established with clear, simple guidelines. Any patient who needed care and couldn't afford it would be covered, no questions asked. A patient advocacy office was created, staffed by multilingual advocates whose job was to help families navigate the system. And most importantly, hospital policy was changed to prioritize patient care over billing in emergency situations. Victoria Chen was not fired, but she was reassigned to a position where she'd never make patient care decisions again. James wanted her kept on as a reminder of what happened when administrators forgot that they were in the business of healing, not just making money. The story of the billionaire who saw a 7-year-old child being dragged out of Valentim Hospital, shouted, "Stop!" and deposited $20 million instantly went viral within days. News outlets picked it up. Social media exploded with praise and with stories from thousands of other families who'd faced similar situations. The conversation about healthcare affordability reached a fever pitch, but for James Patterson, none of the publicity mattered. What mattered was Emma Martinez, the 7-year-old child who reminded him so much of his own daughter. He visited Emma regularly. During her week-long hospital stay, he brought her books and stuffed animals. He talked to her about school and her dreams. And he made sure Rosa understood that Emma's diabetes care would be fully covered for as long as she needed it, through the Patterson Fund he'd established. "Why are you being so nice to us?" Emma asked him one afternoon, her blood sugar finally stabilized, her infection clearing up. The 7-year-old child was sitting up in bed, coloring in a book James had brought her. James sat down beside her bed, and for the first time since his daughter's death 20 years ago, he talked about her. "I had a daughter once," he said quietly. "Her name was Sophie. She was 8 years old when she died from leukemia. I had all the money in the world, the best doctors, the best hospitals, but I couldn't save her. So now, when I see a child who needs help, I think about Sophie. I think about how I'd want someone to help her if she needed it. Emma put down her crayon and looked at James with the kind of wisdom that sick children sometimes develop too early. Sophie was lucky to have a daddy who loved her so much. I never met my daddy, but I think he'd be like you. James had to excuse himself to the hallway, where he broke down crying for the first time in years. This 7-year-old child, who'd been dragged out of a hospital and left to die, was comforting him about his loss. The unfairness of the world, the beauty of resilience, the power of compassion, it all crashed over him at once. When Emma was discharged a week later, she was healthy, her diabetes was managed, and Rosa had been connected with every resource available to help care for her granddaughter. They had a year's supply of insulin, they had a glucose monitor, they had regular appointments scheduled with Dr. Park, they had transportation vouchers to get to those appointments, everything they needed provided by the Patterson Fund. On their last day at the hospital, Emma gave James a drawing she'd made. It showed a little girl holding hands with an angel in a suit standing in the rain. The angel had a halo made of dollar signs. "That's you," Emma explained, pointing to the angel. "You're my angel who stopped the rain." James framed that drawing and hung it in his office, next to a photo of his daughter Sophie, 2 little girls, 20 years apart, both of whom had changed his life in profound ways. Have you ever witnessed someone use their wealth to make a real difference? Tell me in the comments about a time when you saw compassion triumph over profit, because these stories remind us what really matters. 3 months after Emma's discharge, James received a call from Dr. Park. "Mr. Patterson, I wanted to give you an update on the Patterson Fund. In just 3 months, we've helped 87 patients who otherwise would have been denied care. Children with asthma, diabetes, cancer, adults with heart conditions, infections, injuries, people who would have suffered or died because they couldn't afford treatment. Because of you, they're alive and healthy." James felt a sense of purpose he hadn't experienced in decades. "That's 87 reasons why this was worth it, Doctor. What do you need to help more?" The Patterson Emergency Medical Fund grew over the following years. Other wealthy donors, inspired by James's instant $20 million deposit, contributed their own fund. Within 2 years, the program had expanded to 5 other hospitals. Within 5 years, it was a national model for how private philanthropy could address gaps in healthcare coverage. But James never forgot where it started. He never forgot the image of a 7-year-old child being dragged into the rain. Every year, on the anniversary of that November evening, he visited Valentim Hospital and spent the day with patients who'd been helped by the fund. He listened to their stories, learned their names, and reminded himself why wealth existed, not to accumulate, but to make a difference. Emma Martinez grew up healthy and strong, her diabetes well managed through the resources provided by the Patterson Fund. She excelled in school, particularly in math and science. Rosa made sure Emma never forgot the night she was dragged out of the hospital, or the billionaire who'd shouted "stop" and changed everything. When Emma turned 13, James took her and Rosa to lunch to celebrate. The teenager was bright, funny, and already talking about becoming a doctor to help other kids like her. "Mr. Patterson," Emma said over dessert, "I've been thinking about what I want to do with my life. I want to be a pediatric endocrinologist like Dr. Park. I want to help kids with diabetes so they never have to be scared like I was." James smiled, proud of this remarkable young woman. "Emma, you're going to be an amazing doctor. And when you're ready for medical school, the Patterson Medical Education Scholarship will be waiting for you." Rosa, now 79 and still sharp as ever, squeezed James's hand. "You didn't just save her life that night. You gave her a future. You showed her that people can be good, that the world can be fair, that someone will fight for children who can't fight for themselves." "She showed me something too," James replied. "She reminded me why I'm here. Not to make more money or build bigger companies, but to make sure that when I leave this world, it's a little bit better than I found it. One 7-year-old child at a time. Years continue to pass. The Patterson Emergency Medical Fund became a permanent institution, helping thousands of patients annually. James Patterson remained actively involved, personally reviewing cases and making sure the program stayed true to its original mission, ensuring that no patient was ever turned away because they couldn't afford care. On Emma's 18th birthday, she received her acceptance letter to medical school with a full scholarship from the Patterson Medical Education Fund. She called James immediately, crying happy tears. "I got in," Emma shouted through the phone. "Mr. Patterson, I got into medical school. I'm going to be a doctor." James felt his heart swell with pride. "Emma, I never doubted it for a second. You're going to be extraordinary. I'm going to specialize in pediatric endocrinology and diabetes care," Emma continued. "And I'm going to work at Valentim Hospital when I finish my residency. I'm going to help kids just like me, kids whose families can't afford care. I'm going to make sure no 7-year-old child ever gets dragged out of a hospital again." That promise brought tears to James's eyes. The scared 7-year-old child he'd seen being dragged into the rain 11 years ago was now a confident young woman preparing to become a doctor. The cycle of compassion was continuing, growing, multiplying. "Your grandmother would be so proud," James said. Rosa had passed away peacefully 2 years earlier, having lived long enough to see Emma graduate high school with honors and get accepted to college. "She always said you were our angel," Emma replied softly. "She said you proved that miracles still happen, even in a broken system. I want to be that miracle for someone else." Dr. Emma Martinez completed medical school at the top of her class. During her pediatric residency, she created a program to help young diabetic patients and their families manage the disease with limited resources. She published research on healthcare accessibility and became a vocal advocate for insurance reform. True to her word, when Dr. Emma Martinez finished her fellowship in pediatric endocrinology, she returned to Valentim Hospital. Her first day on the job, she walked through the same emergency room entrance where she'd been dragged out as a 7-year-old child, but now she wore a white coat with her name embroidered on it. Dr. Emma Martinez, Pediatric Endocrinology. James Patterson, now 83 years old and slowing down but still sharp, attended her first day. He'd promised he'd be there, and he never broke promises to Emma. They stood together in the parking lot, in the exact spot where he'd shouted, "Stop," 18 years earlier. "Sometimes I still have nightmares about that night," Emma admitted. "Being dragged out in the rain, thinking I was going to die. But then I remember you appearing like an angel, standing up for me when nobody else would." James put his arm around her shoulders. "Emma, I didn't save you. I just opened a door. You saved yourself by being brave enough to walk through it and strong enough to turn that trauma into purpose. You're going to help so many people." "We're going to help them together," Emma corrected. "The Patterson Fund, the advocacy office, the research we're doing, it's all connected. One man's instant $20 million deposit became a movement that's changing healthcare." She was right. What had started with one billionaire's shocking reaction to injustice had grown into a national conversation about healthcare access, medical debt, and the moral obligation to care for the vulnerable. The Patterson model had been adopted by hospitals across the country. Legislation had been proposed. Lives had been saved. But for James and Emma, it wasn't about statistics or policy changes. It was personal. It was about a 7-year-old child who'd been thrown away by the system and given a second chance by someone who cared more about people than profit. On her first day, Dr. Emma Martinez treated a 5-year-old boy with newly diagnosed diabetes. His parents were undocumented immigrants who spoke no English and were terrified of being deported if they sought medical help. They'd waited until their son was critically ill before bringing him to Valentim Hospital, and they were prepared to be turned away. Instead, they found Dr. Emma Martinez, who spoke fluent Spanish, who understood their fear, who remembered being that scared child herself. "Your son is going to get the best care we can provide," Emma told them in Spanish, sitting beside them in the emergency room. "And you're not going to pay anything. We have a fund specifically for families like yours, created by a man who believes that every child deserves health care no matter what." The mother cried with relief. The father held his son and whispered prayers of gratitude. And Emma thought about James Patterson, about the night he'd shouted, "Stop!" about how one moment of courage and compassion had created ripples that were still spreading 18 years later. That night, Emma called James to tell him about her first patient. "Mr. Patterson, I helped a family today just like you helped me. And they looked at me the same way I looked at you that night, like I was a miracle. But I know the truth. The miracle isn't one person helping another. The miracle is teaching people that they have the power to help, then watching them pay it forward." James smiled on his end of the phone. "Emma, you've become everything I hoped you would be. Everything Sophie would have been. I'm so proud of you." "Thank you for not driving past that night," Emma said, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for shouting, 'Stop!' Thank you for depositing $20 million instantly instead of thinking about it or forming a committee or doing what most rich people do. Thank you for acting like a human being instead of a billionaire. Thank you for growing up to be the kind of doctor who remembers where she came from," James replied. "That's the real legacy, Emma. Not the money, but the compassion. Not the fund, but the people it creates who go on to help others." James Patterson passed away peacefully in his sleep 2 years later, at the age of 85. His funeral was attended by hundreds of people whose lives had been changed by his philanthropy. But the eulogy that mattered most was delivered by Dr. Emma Martinez. James Patterson saw a 7-year-old child being dragged out of a hospital in the rain. Emma began, standing at the podium with tears streaming down her face. He could have looked away. He could have gone to his charity gala and written a tax-deductible check and felt good about himself. Instead, he shouted, "Stop!" One word that changed my life and thousands of others. She paused, composing herself. Mr. Patterson deposited $20 million instantly that night, but his real gift wasn't money. It was showing me that one person can make a difference. That compassion is more powerful than policy. That the measure of wealth isn't what you accumulate, but what you give away and who you help. Emma looked out at the congregation. "I'm alive today because James Patterson cared more about a sick child than about a business dinner. I'm a doctor today because he believed that my life had value even when the system said it didn't. And every patient I treat, every family I help, every child I save, that's his legacy continuing." The Patterson Emergency Medical Fund continues to this day, now managed by Dr. Emma Martinez and overseen by a board that includes several people who were helped by the program as children and grew up to become healthcare professionals. The fund has helped over 100,000 patients and inspired similar programs at hospitals nationwide. The story of the billionaire who saw a 7-year-old child being dragged out of Valentim Hospital, shouted, "Stop!" and deposited $20 million on the spot became legendary in healthcare advocacy circles. It's taught in medical ethics classes as an example of how individual action can create systemic change. It's shared on social media whenever someone needs a reminder that compassion still exists in the world. But the real story isn't about money or policy. It's about a man who saw injustice and had the courage to stop it. It's about a 7-year-old child who was deemed worthless by a system but proved to be priceless. It's about how one moment in the rain, one shouted word, one instant decision to act instead of ignore, created ripples that are still changing lives decades later. So here's my final question for you. If you witnessed a 7-year-old child being dragged out of a hospital, what would you do? Would you look away or would you shout, "Stop"? You might not have $20 million to deposit instantly, but you have a voice. You have influence. You have the power to stand up for people who can't stand up for themselves. What will you do with that power? Drop your answer in the comments because your voice matters, and your commitment to compassion could inspire someone else to take action when it matters most. Because that's what James Patterson taught us. That's what Emma Martinez proved, and that's what every person who's ever been helped by the Patterson Fund represents. The incredible power of choosing compassion over convenience, action over apathy, humanity over profit. One 7-year-old child. One shouted word, $20 million deposited instantly, and a legacy that will save lives for generations to come. That's the story of how one billionaire's reaction shocked everyone and changed healthcare forever. What's your story going to be?